25 before the hour. I can't let this go just yet. Jeb Bush's statement today. He also criticized the State Department, U.S. State Department's decision not to invite Cuban dissidents to the flag-raising ceremony at the U.S. Embassy in Havana. Bush put it this way. I mean, this rat bastard, all these politicians, but especially this guy, this guy whose family is responsible. I mean, he carries the bloodlines of a family that is responsible for so much death, disorder, destruction, chaos, refugees, dead children, dead babies, dead fetuses, depleted uranium all over somebody else's country. I mean, it's just an outrage that this guy would say a goddamn word about human rights or justice or dignity, since he doesn't understand, nor does he or his family participate in any of that. They really don't. This is a family, oh God. I'll talk about speaking out for freedom and democracy. This is a family that is probably their tightest friends are the Saudi royals. That's the country you'll remember where if a woman drives a car by herself, she's subject to be lashed with a whip or a cane or a stick 100 times in public, right? That's who they consider to be paragons of human rights conduct within their country. The goddamn Saudis, the most repressive, dictatorial, religious Nazi country on earth. So this scum-sucking Jeb has the audacity to talk about he says that courageous Cubans whose only crime is to speak out for freedom and democracy will be kept away from the official ceremony opening the U.S. Embassy as yet another concession to the Castros. Well, I keep thinking about his effed up brother. Every time after the invasion of Iraq, every time his brother went somewhere to speak, the local gendarmes and the Secret Service and the CIA and the DIA and the MIA and all these goddamn fascist U.S. police organizations would keep people the hell away so that Georgie wouldn't even have to look at them. Remember First Amendment zones? Remember when this country used to be in it, the entire country was a First Amendment zone? But with the Bush presidency, this turkey's brother, this slob who has the absolute temerity to stand up now and talk about Cuban dissidents being denied a chance to go to the American flag-raising ceremony in the Cuban embassy. This from a guy whose family are liars, crooks, war criminals. It's just astonishing what goes on here. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. In a sane, rational country, this rancid bastard would spend the rest of his life trying to find scams he could run like his other brothers and stay out of national politics. The State Department defended the decision not to invite dissidents by noting that the flag-raising ceremony, quote, is principally a government-to-government event. End quote. A senior State Department official told reporters earlier this week, not in response to this warmongering little bastard Jeb Bush, but to questions that were asked, State Department officials said, quote, there will be some U.S. and Cuban private citizens there, but it is primarily a government-to-government event, and it is extremely constrained in space. Now, that's bureaucrat government speak that means, look, we understand the Cubans have people locked up for opposing Castro's rule. We understand that that's probably not the best way to handle dissidents. But when you live in a country like Cuba that has had this monster country 90 miles north of it, who had the power at any moment to annihilate How many people? 13 million people in Cuba that quick. Oh, and who tried to assassinate the leader of Cuba. How many times did the CIA try to murder Castro? How many times did we try to invade and have it blow up in our faces, so to speak? So I guess after a little bit of that, yeah, you start to think, somebody who's out here pounding the pavement carrying a sign that says, Yankee si, Cuba no, maybe we ought to lock that guy up. Because who knows who he is or what he's going to do next. Now, does that sound like I'm excusing totalitarianism? Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like, doesn't it? But let me tell you something else about Cuba that you probably already know, thanks to Wikipedia. University of Havana was founded in 1728, and there are a number of other well-established colleges and universities. In 1957, just before Castro came to power, the literacy rate was fourth in the region at 80% according to the United Nations, higher than in Spain. Castro created an entirely state-operated system and banned private institutions. School attendance is compulsory from ages 6 to the end of the basic secondary education, normally at the age of 15. And all students, regardless of age or gender, wear school uniforms with the color denoting grade level. Primary education lasts for 6 years. Secondary education is divided into basic and pre-university education. Cuba's literacy rate is 99.8%, the 10th highest in the world, due largely to the provision of free education at every level. Cuba's high school graduation rate is 94%. Higher education is provided by universities, higher institutes, higher pedagogical institutes, and higher polytechnic institutes. The Cuban Ministry of Higher Education operates a scheme of distance education which provides regular afternoon and evening courses in rural areas for agricultural workers. Education has a strong political and ideological emphasis, and students progressing to higher education are expected to have a commitment to the goals of Cuba. Cuba has provided state-subsidized education to a limited number of foreign nationals at the Latin American School of Medicine. According to the Webometrics ranking of world universities, the top-ranking universities in Cuba are Universidad de la Habana, Instituto Superior Politécnico José Antonio Echeverría, and the University of Santiago de Cuba. Now that's education, health. Oh, by the way, did you miss that, Jeb? Cuba's literacy rate is 99.8%. Cuba's high school graduation rate is 94%. And these are not people who come out with a full knowledge of the book of Leviticus. These are people that come out with an education. Healthcare. Cuba's life expectancy at birth is 78 years. Historically, Cuba has ranked high in numbers of medical personnel and has made significant contributions to world health since the 19th century. Today, Cuba has universal health care, and although shortages of medical supplies persist, guess why? There is no shortage of medical personnel. Primary care is available throughout the island, and infant and maternal mortality rates compare favorably with those in developed nations. Post-revolution Cuba initially experienced an overall worsening in terms of disease and infant mortality rates in the 60s, when half of its 6,000 doctors left the country. Recovery occurred by the 80s, and the country's health care has been widely praised. The communist government asserted that universal health care was to become a priority of state planning, and progress was made in rural areas. Like the rest of the Cuban economy, Cuban medical care suffered from severe material shortages, following the end of Soviet subsidies in 1991, followed by a further tightening of the U.S. embargo in 1992. According to the UN, the life expectancy in Cuba is 78.3 years. 76.2 for males and 80.4 for females. This ranks Cuba 37th in the world and 3rd in the Americas, behind only Canada and Chile, and just ahead of the United States. Infant mortality in Cuba declined from 32 infant deaths per 1,000 live births in 1957 to 10 in 1990 to 1995, to 6.1 in 2000-2005. The infant mortality rate now per 1,000 births is 5.13. And then it talks about Cuban cancer treatments, Cuban this, Cuba that. Oh, and by the way, this year, the World Health Organization declared Cuba the first country on earth to end transmission of HIV and syphilis from mother to child. Stick that up your place where the sun don't shine, Jeb, and see if it fits.